Okay, hello friends. One more video on the Department of Social Services. So, talked about food, general assistance, food stamps, and medi-cal. So I want to share with you guys a little bit about the culture of the Department of Social Services and what somebody who's homeless is going to experience going there. So, I've taken many homeless people to apply for benefits at the Department of Social Services in SLO or in South County when I worked on there as a case manager. And again, I've worked in the county for Transitions Mental Health Association and for CAPSLO for almost 10 years. So, okay, so the Department of Social Services, in another bit of context, a number of years ago, I applied for a job as a child welfare services worker. So it was a long process, like a 6-month application process, and like 4 different interviews. It was just obscene. It took a long time. So they eventually offered me the job, and I did a bunch of research and talked to a bunch of friends about whether I should about their experience. I decided not to take the job for a number of reasons. It doesn't mean that the organization is garbage, but just to say, I know somewhat of the culture of the Department of Social Services. So basically, if somebody is working with general assistance, food stamps, and medi-cal in those programs, as a social worker, the job demands an engineer-like perspective and gifting package in order to navigate the paperwork, in order to take somebody who's homeless through the application process. It's brutal. So, and if just generally, if you know anybody who's really detail oriented, they're generally, okay, don't kill me for this, they're generally not very relational. So it's just, you don't get that package of someone who's like super relational and empathetic and compassionate, asks good questions, makes eye contact. You don't have that and engineer-like precision. Jesus usually doesn't make those, they don't mesh very well together. So you got to understand a lot of these social workers, depending on how long they've been working there, they're not necessarily very relational. So, and when somebody's homeless is going there, they're going to be asked a crap load of very personal questions about their life. And it's an intimidating process. It can be humiliating. And if there's not a lot of care from the social worker, which there's usually not, it can be really hard. So it's intimidating, and sometimes it takes a really long time because as somebody who's homeless will go in and apply and not know for a while whether or not they get these benefits. Social worker might call them back and be like, "Hey, I need some more information. I don't know about this or that," and it's a process. So. But you have to know when you send somebody there, it's not it's not like going to Disneyland or going to In and Out and getting a double. It's a lot more complicated than that, and somebody has to kind of bare their soul to a stranger that's just like looking at a computer, like, guys, like, oh yeah, I was divorced, and and I was in the foster system too, and things have fallen apart, and they're like, looking at them like, oh, okay, all right. So, well, where did you live 5 years ago? Okay, okay, and who's your mom, and what size are your underwear, and why do you have a beard? Are you alcoholic? Do you shoot heroin in your neck? It's just, I'm being facetious and funny, but it's the questions that they're asked they're really personal, and it is not easy. So anybody that goes there for the first time is it's intimidating, and it can be very difficult. And there's a high degree of incompetence too. Just to say that through the years, good cop, bad cop, good pastor, bad pastor, good social worker, bad social worker. Some of them are just there to pull a paycheck, and they are just interested in keeping the wrong people out. So, and again, the government has this perspective with giving services. Their goal is to make sure only the right people get in, which is a good goal, but there's not a lot of encouragement along those lines. There's not a lot of encouragement in the process, and it's a very detailed process. So Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's for a purpose. You got to know that when somebody goes there, it's usually a cold process. And if you can think of it in these terms, like, is going to the DMV fun? You know, do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy waiting in line? Number 26. Like, do you enjoy that? You know, waiting for hours just to register your car? If you're, you know, dumb enough to go at 10 o'clock on a Friday or on a Monday. The DMV is, you know, this sort of like socialist system where efficiency and relational connection and excellency you don't experience that very often. So the Department of Social Services is like that also, is like the DMV. You just got to hold that as we are trying to, you know, our goal as brothers and mothers in SLO County is to provide emotional, social, and spiritual support for people experiencing homelessness. We want to be encouragements to them. So you got to understand, it's not like just going to a window and getting food stamps. Oh, thank you. It's very complicated. So I hope that makes sense. I think I rambled. Anyways, it's a little bit on the culture. And there's a lot of other organizations with a lot of other characteristics. But the Department of Social Services, you know, it can be cold. It can be very complicated. It can be very inefficient. And unfortunately, cold, complicated, and inefficient is what I've heard over the last 15 years, 5 years in Portland, Oregon, 10 years here. Unfortunately, most people's experience is at least one of those: cold, complicated, and inefficient. So there you go. Just know your people, know that this is what they're facing.